Welcome to Crossing the Line, a special 12-part series of Kids Sketch focusing on the interesting and culturally diverse San Diego-Tijuana region during the region's designation as the World Design Capital in 2024. Crossing the Line by Kids Sketch introduces kids and adults to the benefits of sketching as a way of seeing, understanding, communicating, and appreciating the interesting world all around us. Crossing the Line welcomes a different guest each time, and today we welcome Olga Sanchez, founder and president of Trem Lighting in Tijuana. With Olga, we will explore the significance of lighting on a project and the importance of the details and the artisans who create them. Welcome, Olga, to Crossing the Line. I'm excited to talk to you today. You bring a different perspective to the program than we normally get to experience. So, you're the owner of Trem Lighting in Tijuana, and your company manufactures light fixtures. So, can you tell us a little bit about your company and how did you get involved in that?
Oh, hello, Laura, and thank you very much for having me on this incredible project. Yeah, let me tell you a bit about myself and about custom lighting. I started my company in 1997 in Tijuana, Mexico. The reason that I got into lighting is because I like to explore all the different materials that across the border in Mexico we have. We don't seem to see them very often. So I decided to get into venture into this manufacturing industry. And also because I have a manufacturing background, my father used to be a furniture maker in Tijuana. So I was basically born in the manufacturing industry. And over the years, obviously the market had changed. And I had a vision of manufacturing in Mexico, especially in Tijuana, and having our little grain in the sand across the border. So I started not creating, but basically fabricating for other companies in the United States. And with time, we got US certified, US listed, finished a whole different, a full finished product. I learned about architecture. I learned about interior designing, and I have an engineering background. So that gave me the backbone to set up a full on manufacturing facility here across the border. Over the years, we have been very privileged to work with the top 10 interior designers from the United States and Canada. And with time, I have learned that lighting represents 10% of any architectural project, not just decorative, landscaping, architectural, indoor, outdoor, you name it. We represent in general the lighting components, 10% of any given project. So with that in mind, I just starting to work hand by hand. No, I mean, not hand by hand, or hand with hand, right? Together with those architectural firms and interior designers and lighting designers. And I'm very grateful they entrusted me to execute their vision. And now, fast forward, 2024, I just see that our completed projects that scatter all over the place. And also that it's very rewarding that we're still here across the border in Tijuana. That is how I can tell you in a nutshell what we do.
I understand that you don't sketch, but do the architects, interior designers, and others that you work with hand in hand, do they sketch at all? How do they convey their initial ideas to you?
Through a sketch, through a sketch, always through a sketch. Even our engineers outdoors, they start sketching. No, we don't go into a full CAD drawing without sketching first. Nothing goes into a full drawing unless it's sketched first. As a fabricator, as a manufacturer, and with engineering team, that sketch turns into a full drawing, capturing the design concept of that sketch. And also, what is the application of that sketch or that potential light fixture? What is it going to be like? Where is it going to be installed? Is it going to be indoor, damp, wet? But even before we do a prototype, I always present the type of materials, the type of finishes, the type of electrical that we're going to be using. If everybody's in agreement, then we go and execute a prototype.
I've heard something about a chandelier you fabricated for a building on the UCSD campus. Can you tell us about that?
The chandelier, it has been one of the most challenging and beautiful projects that we ever done for our property, in this case, UCSD, because it took a lot of effort from the lighting designer to come up with a design concept that we as fabricators could execute and to understand why it was that concept. The lighting designer first said, let's hang sandals, like really flip flops. So this is me, this is one of my research ventures. So I went to a chain store and bought three pairs of sandals, male and female, and different colors. And they said, this is how we're going to come up with a mold. But basically, what I remember that it was challenging. How are we going to develop and execute this project? So that was one of the most interesting projects that I ever worked with.
I understand you've replicated some fixtures in Balboa Park.
We have been fortunate also, very privileged to work on historical buildings, and we need to replicate, the best possible way those light fixtures to keep the design concept, the design intent, the feeling of the property. So we need to work, hand in hand with the architect and lighting designer to execute and protect that historical light fixture. Either do we refurbish, that current, if it's any light fixture, or we use it as a template to replicate the new ones, meeting the, up-to-date standards.
I love this little dragon guy fixture we are sketching today, especially the metal.
It's forged. What we call the metal is forged. It is hand pounded metal. The glass is water glass, amber water glass, because it has this kind of wavy, it's not flat, wavy reflection. The metal itself had to be metallized or galvanized to withstand the elements, and then powder coat on top of it, and hand apply finish as a last coat.
I love the patina, the weathering effect on the metal, and I can't wait to start sketching this little guy. Olga, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fascinating hearing about the manufacturing and the history of your company.
Ah, no problem. It's been a pleasure.
I know you don't sketch, but I'm hoping that you'll sketch along with us as we sketch this cool little light fixture in Balboa Park.
Yes, yeah, I will do my best to wear my hands and my pencils there.
Excellent. Let's get started. I want to to do a little warm up exercise, a little thumbnail. And I'm just going to try to, with my little thumbnail, study. What is it I'm looking at? There's some little curvy things on the bottom, curvy things at the top. It's got an X through it. It's got this funny little crown, and it's got a dragon. Uh, it looks like it's got a dragon holding it up, like a little S guy. Pretty cool. And diagonal brace to hold it there. By doing a little warm up, a little thumbnail, super fast sketch, you can start seeing where you need to, to study, to spend your time, or what areas you need to look at more. And then, of course, there's the wall, if you want to get into it, and some shadows. That's a little more than what I'd normally do for a thumbnail. And it might confuse the issue, like that. You could even do a couple more practice runs. Maybe you want to study the shadows on the light fixture itself and maybe completely ignore the shadows on the wall, which I think are a good idea to ignore them for now. But you just look and you warm up. Try not to hold your pen too tight. a funny little S for the dragon. When you do warm-ups like this, it's sort of hard for me to, maybe it's not the right thing for me to do to talk through it. But I'll just tell you how I do my warm-up. And just let the lines be all scribbly. And certainly not judgmental at this, not judgmental when you're doing thumbnails, but just trying to get the gist of it. There's this cool little dragon fixture that you saw. You were sitting in a restaurant. Oh my gosh, look at that cool dragon fixture. I want to be able to remember this some other time. And so you might finish your little thumbnail. You might add a few other little things to remind you. Maybe the side that's against the, away from the light, gets a little more shadow. And then you can look at it and see what's sort of wacky about this. What do I need to work on when I go to do the real thing? Thumbnails. I think this is a fairly quick sketch, so I'm going to try it two ways for our session today. We're going to try first starting with our pencil. We'll block it out, and then we'll go back and add the ink. And then we're going to do another way, where we're going to start just with ink. So let's start with the glass and wrought iron portion first. And it's sort of like a cube in perspective, though it's rectangular. It's a rectangular prism that has its walls splayed. And notice that nothing is parallel because the sides are splaying out. And lightly with your pencil, block it out. And see how I'm holding my pencil back? I'm not holding it as if I were writing. I'm holding back a little. And I'm letting my lower fingers contribute to how we're moving the pencil around. You see there's little dragony things. There's a little oval. It's pretty busy in there if you were to zoom in. I just want to block these fun little things out. At the bottom, there's 3 scallops. And then we see them on the sides. Foreshortened, we do see them in the back. There's 5 scallops up top, the larger one in the middle, and then 2 equal ones on either side, like that. When you do those, see they're half rounds here? Well, they're half rounds on the side, but they're not gonna look like a half round. When it's off to the side, they're more like ovals, half ovals. All right, got our little block out. It's got this funny little crown. Now look where the center of it is. It's not lining up with the center vertical bar. The center of it, kind of halfway in between. So make a little vertical line up there. And I see a ring up a little bit. I'm gonna have this little, like a crown, that little arrow coming off that direction. Just gonna make it like it's an arrow for now. I'll come back later. And then there's another one you see over here. And then above it, 2 rings and the dragon's mouth. I'm sort of working backwards on the dragon from what I did in the thumbnail. I started the sketch differently. But let's do this little funny S. In making the S, I keep comparing it to what I've already done. So if I were to draw just continue this center line up. Look, I'm right at the throat of that dragon. There's his chin, if you will. Part of that S is coming down. He goes off at an angle like that. How far away is he? Before he dips back down, it's not the full width. It's a little more than half of this. Maybe eyeball it, make a sharp S. See how this is like an S with a bigger curve at the bottom, like that. There's a plate against the wall, which you can just show, maybe block it out as a long skinny oval. And then how about that diagonal? The diagonal is going to be going through here. It's going to hit the wall below the bottom of this S and below the bottom of the light fixture. So maybe make a little, this looks like a bat ray or something. A heart, sort of. And then up at the top, there's that, it's got a curly Q. And then just connect that diagonal line lightly. He goes up and over. I want to do it lightly because I'd love to get that little twisty thing in there. There's two twists. You can see them. We'll figure out how to darken them back in. Oh, how about the wings? Dragon wings. Looks like a Viking ship. And so, you know, it's basically a triangle like that has these curved lines that get taller. It's like a wing, like that. Is there anything else we'd like to add before we maybe let's do a little better job? Little funny nose, the hair on the top of his dragon head. Shape the mouth. You can start erasing some things if they're in the way. He's coming to life. He's got some character in him. Now you might let's see. Why don't we? I do think the shadows are going to be helpful. Let's get that corner of that wall, that vertical put in. Because what we're going to have, see how there's shadows on this wall, and they're very diagonal, very stretched out. This had to have been late in the afternoon. And I'm just making some light lines that are showing where these shadows are. But then see what happens when you get to this wall, you know, and this is the wall where we have those horizontal blinds inside. But we can just pretend that it's a solid wall if we want. But look how it's the wings of the dragon that are making this looks like a handprint on the wall. And you can just show it. It's just a strange little shadow like that, just a little blob. The fixture itself, you see where the shadow is down here? I'm just going to lightly block it out like that. And what we're not seeing are all these other, like I said, if it were a solid wall, we'd have a few more things that are descriptive. I'll just block it out a little bit here. And then, if you're ready, we can go back in and outline. So for this first one, so we can go back in and outline in pen. For this first one where we've started in in pencil, I'm going to suggest we make it sort of an outline sketch, not unlike what we often do on some of our other sketches. So a thin pen will help us here. I tried this one this first time with a very fine fountain pen. That was a mistake. Too fine a pen and you're spending your whole sketch just trying to get all the details in. So if I were trying to do some sort of a fine drawing, a super fine pen would give it some nice character. But we're still in sketch mode. We just did a thumbnail, and I think not getting too thin of a pen is a good idea. And the next one we're going to do after this, we'll use a slightly thicker pen. You have it. Now, if you wanted to, I'm not sure if I was actually sitting up there, if I'd be able to see some of these details in that light fixture, but they're kind of cool. This side's going to be in the shadow. I can still see some stuff though. And then on the side, remember this side is in foreshortening. So even though it's got the same little oval in the middle, it's got the same sort of things happening, they're so squished together because you're seeing them foreshortened. Make a little fine dash line to show where you can see the lid of the light fixture inside. Just some series of dots. And the bottom here. And then you'll have your what's happening behind and beyond. And we'll come shade them in just a little bit. So I'm doing this as a series of broken lines. See these curlies up here, the wrought iron is curling, and sometimes it's going to show up as a rectangle, and sometimes you will see the side of it as a curve. And this is one of those cases where you're going to try to sketch what you really do see, not what you think you see. And so this is actually a good exercise in that, because we've not seen a light fixture like this. It's unique. It's playful, but you really need to study it. If you were ever in front of one of those buildings, maybe in Europe, where they have gargoyles, you'd really have to study the gargoyle. What am I looking at here? I recognize it as a funny, fanciful character, but you have to really pay attention to this little part of the crown. The light fixture is pretty pointing up and foreshortened. And then this guy, we're seeing him stick way out here. And if we're ready, we could try the dragon. There's no particular order you really need to work on, but maybe try to spend a little, put extra lines where it's dark and fewer lines where it's light, where it's really hitting this, where the sun is hitting it. Definitely break your lines up, like at the top of that S, because the way the sun is catching it, but down below you can make it a solid line like that. And then we have this plaque on the wall, same sort of scallop, irregular dragony scallops. And if we're ready, we can finish off diagonal, and I'm gonna do some broken lines for where the twists are. They used flat bar for the crown, and it actually, if I were to zoom in, it's a square bar that they twisted here. Pretty interesting. They were reproducing the light fixtures that were there originally on the building. I need to find out if these were from the 1918 exposition or was it from the exposition in the 30s. All right, let's finish this little guy's neck. And then see how he's flat and he's getting bigger there? It's almost like I guess we could be calling him a rooster dragon. But his beak is sort of like a rooster's. And he has a little eye. Now what else do we need to do? We can start blocking out where some of the shadows are going to go. We can block out the corner wall. And we just do some dash lines to indicate that corner beyond. Like that. Do some dashed lines to where we're going to go with the shadows. Because the reason I'm saying just do some dotted dashed lines here is because the shadows we're actually going to do is a series of little hatches like that. See how that looks? And when we get into the shade shadow, I'm just doing that as a demonstration, but we're going to come back and do more of that later. I want to finish blocking everything out even in ink. We want to build up our sketch. So I'm just going to outline a little bit where the shadows are going. A series of dots around this. Now we can maybe erase some things. If you could start erasing a few things before you start adding more. We get to the shade and shadow. And that'll tell you what you have and haven't forgotten to sketch in. It's fun, I think, this stage, when you start to erase, to see how it looks on its own. All right, this little ring up here needs to look more like a ring. Now we can start adding a little bit of what I'd like to do on this far side. I'm going to do some cross hatching. I'm going to start darkening it in. Same here. Going up the side, parts in the middle. Everything gets sort of shaded in like that. On the front side, if you do want to put some sort of texture on it, make your lines a little farther apart. You can cross hatch it like that for now. We may decide that we want to go back in and add a lot more tonal value on the front of this, just to give it punch. But for now, keep the light areas sort of light. and the dark area is dark. A little shadow. Now, let's add the texture of the glass and how it's sort of frosted and it's tinted and it's water glass, amber water glass, and we can sort of barely see through it. If it were clear glass, we'd probably see the underside of that lid in there as darker, but it's kind of frosted like that. So I'm making a series of squiggly lines because that water glass is causing sort of a ripply effect. But I want to indicate where I see the top of this. And your squiggly lines will go all over the glass. Everywhere there's glass, there'll be fewer lines and squiggles at the bottom and more of them at the top to give a hint that there's stuff inside there. I feel like we're having a little trouble getting this thing to read. We may, when we're done, when we get a little farther along, go back and darken in everything that's the wrought iron, everything that's the light, since that's what we're doing. But for now, I'm toning in the darks. The bottom of that light fixture, you can see the little scallops below. Now let's see, let's get some more tone on the rest of the fixture. I'm going for the wings now. And I'm keeping my lines going with the direction of where the wings are and how it's curving. And now I'm making some curving lines down below because that bar is round. The body of the dragon is round, so my lines are curved like this. I'm going to put some tone on that plate against the wall, which causes the S to pop a little, to stand out against that. See how it's giving some background, which makes the shape more pronounced. And then this guy against the wall, I think my proportions are a little off. I'm going to darken him in because he seems dark. So going back through our tonal values, working our way up, this bar seems mostly dark. Now let's go ahead and add some shadows where the shadows go. This one is all in shadow. That's his. This is where we want to use those crosshatch lines. And it doesn't have a defined outline on it, which helps your sketch read that that's not a real object, it's the shadow of the object. And then we're getting where it hits the wall. I'm just pretty much lines together. Keeping them go in the same direction. Some people will do shadow lines in what is called cross-hatching. That is, you might take your lines the other direction. Maybe I'll do cross-hatching when it hits this other wall. So the first wall, it's going in just one direction, and then the second wall, do that cross-hatching. It's like a basketball hoop. Now there are some funny little other things. If you wanted to, they're like the rest of that light fixture. We know that there's sort of a chain up there, so you could continue just to do a few other. That does look like a basketball hoop. That's not a problem. How does that look? Does it read enough like a light fixture? If you feel like you need to add a little more tone on this face, you could go ahead and do that. So try to make the right-hand side the darkest darks. Even the whole thing over that glass could have more lines like that. So that this part, if you did go in and add a little more tone, at least this space, you want to try to keep it so that it's obviously lighter than what's happening around the corner. I'm going to let the ink dry a little bit. I mean, if you wanted to, you could give it some reference very lightly. You know, it's a window over here. Look at as a window. If you wanted to hint it, just skip your lines and put the horizontal lines of the blinds that are in there. Maybe one of the problems with my shadow is it doesn't quite mimic the same shape. All right, how do we like that? So I'm calling this the dragon fixture. At the Prado restaurant, Balboa Park. In the month and the year. All right, so now that we've done that, there's something I want to try, and I want to see what happens if we just say it's a really dark fixture. Let's just make it all dark. I will give this dragon, I'll just make them all dark. Maybe I'll leave the arrow, this little, whatever that is, keep him light. The fixture I want to darken up. Because, you know, these fixtures are made from that metal. And I think probably when they first hung it up there, it was probably all dark. And it's with age that it's gotten that sort of dusty finish on it. And then I'm using these curving lines just to reinforce that it's a curved bar. It's made from a curved piece of metal. There, how do you like that? Now that it's all, and then you can go back in and see if there's any other areas that you want to darken up. Anything else that might be kind of cool? I want to try to add a little color. If you have a colored pencil, it'd be really cool if you had like a marker. Oh, this is a yellow. Let me see if I can't find something that's got a little more amber, something a little more amber. That's fun. It really looks like a light fixture, doesn't it? When you just add that little bit of amber color on the glass. Okay, then we've done a detail. Anything else you want to add? Now let's try this other method where we use just the pen, and it'll go a lot quicker. We're not going to be so precious with it, and I'm using a slightly fatter pen. And so I'm just going to block it out. One of the best things with pen is to make a series of dots instead of really committing to the lines. That way, if you find that your proportions are a little off or something's not quite right, then you haven't made a really big fat dark line that you can't cover up. So the dots are a little easier to cover up. So we see a little more of the front in this one, of course, this view. And we're going to do what we did the first time. Like getting the little grid in there, that little pattern. Got the side. If you find you've made it too thin, you can always add another set of dots there. And then I like to add the scallops, just doing it there. It's more of a gesture drawing, isn't it? What I'm doing now. You see that needs to come in just a little. Get our little circles up here, our rings that allow us to hang it. So this lower ring is part of the light, and the upper ring is in the dragon's mouth. So I'm going to get some of these little swords. Using a fatter pen, some things are kind of committed and some things can be very uncommittal. You're just going to let the marks the pins make make your statements for you. All right, so it's I like to do that diagonal next because I see the angle that it's at. It goes off that way. It's hitting the wall a little bit below. Remember, that's sort of could be a heart, could be more like a stingray. Goes up a little. When you're ready to make your lines, make your lines. Okay, and so then we have the dragon body. It's a bit of an S. You know, and now that we've done it once, you're a little more practiced, you're maybe a little more confident. I've already admitted we're going to go a little faster with this, so sketchy is good. Sketchy's character. Okay, so that plate against the wall kind of aligns with the end of the diagonal. And now we'll get the wings. I think we're just about ready to, let's see, add the window. So this one is it's a lot sketchier. And if you're comfortable with your pen and you want to make it more detailed, that's fine. It'd be fun to try this one where we go right in with pen and we just be brave. We can add the shadows just the way we did with the previous one. Series of dots. And this one, I'm going to suggest that we're going to get a little more aggressive with our nice black pen. And that's just the character of it. And this one we are going to go ahead and it's this wrought iron or forged metal. Make it dark. In a way, with the series of dots, I did what we do with the pencil, but then now I'm going back in with the pen and I'm filling it in. Remember, these are more like ovals. We're seeing them foreshortened. I'm going to darken in Mr. Dragon right from the beginning. I forgot to leave a white dot for his eye. Seeing that's on the wall, I'm going to show us just some diagonal lines. We'll dash in what's happening inside. Do just as we did before. It's a series of squiggles. Just fill it in. If you want the border, go ahead and put a border around there. Finish your shadows, and let's see if we can't make the shadows on the right-hand side not look like a basketball hoop. Can figure out how to make our shadows be like that. maybe just mirror, loosely mirror, abstractly mirror what's happening above, like that. I'm looking around while I'm filling this in. I'm looking around to see what else I can add. These little curly cues up top. See how you can just make them squiggles. You wanted to put that window in, some definition. Maybe I don't want them to look exactly like shutters. It's just something on the wall. There, and I loved the color in that last one. It just made it pop so, almost like it was lit. Now, wasn't that a fun one too? Dragon lamp, dragon fixture, I think we called it.